Kyle, you want to do the roll?
I would love to.
Okay.
Ms. Bain, Ms. Chaput, Mr. Dugan,
Here.
Mr. Dribbin. Here. Ms. Finney is absent. Ms. Johnson's absent. Mr. Heil,
Here.
Ms. Kirkton,
Here.
Mr. Klemp is here, and Mr. Yochley is absent.
Okay, and Nicole said she would probably call in a little bit late. All right. Move on to the approval of the minutes.
There's been a mistake that I would like to offer.
Okay, go ahead.
Neil's last name is Bruntrager, not Bruntrag, so I would make that edit.
Okay, very good.
With that change, I would move to approve the minutes.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are adopted. I guess, Dr. Peoples is, the city attorney. Will he be with us?
He will not be
Okay.
with us.
Okay,
However, I don't think the members necessarily need the bylaws again there as they were discussed last time. They just need to be on this agenda for the vote.
okay.
If anybody needs them, I'm happy to go print them.
Does everyone recall the change to the bylaws that we discussed last meeting, I believe, and because of the time issue, we had to delay approval of those till today. Is there any objection to adopting the bylaw change?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
All second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the bylaws are adopted. Is there any member discussion and questions?
Madam Chair, I will get those bylaws to you to sign. so we can
Okay.
Codify them and then we can put them.
Okay, thank you.
online.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to new business and we have an update to the roster of our Charter Review Board. And John Eppers was appointed as an alternate at the last city council meeting. And Paul Dribbin is now a regular member. Okay, and we'll move on to discussion of the May 10th public engagement listening session. And Joe is the chair of that subcommittee.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So just an update for our members here. We are moving ahead with our inaugural listening session. It'll be over at the Webster Groves Public Library Meeting Room on Wednesday evening, May 10, starting at 6:30. We have, Jeannie, correct me, 8 confirmations and 1 maybe, based on the RSVPs and a lot of phone calls that Jeannie made to folks vacillating in attendance. So I have pulled together a short 15, 20 some slides. So to help kind of guide the discussion, what I was planning to do with this session was to kind of use it as a bit of a workshop of the survey and basically go through the survey questions on the issues and ask the attendees to help us with their reaction on clarity of the questions and that is understood, and then some short discussion of their views on, you know, the options that we are looking at in terms of all the major issues that you've seen on the survey. So it's going to be covering a lot of time, a lot of ground in a relatively short amount of time. We are going to cut things off at 8 o'clock. Don't want to keep people there any longer than that. And maybe we'll even get done sooner than that. We'll see. I think as of now, myself, I'll be kind of the facilitator of the discussion. Jeannie will be there and will help do kind of a setup of some introduction. Kyle, I think you've volunteered to be there and you want to particularly hear the discussion on the wards section. And then I think either Michael or Tammy will be also attending. I think we only, to kind of keep us under creating a public meeting out of this session, we'll try to keep membership to just 4. So I'll work with them to decide who attends and go from there. So good setup and looking forward to it.
Has an agenda been posted for this meeting?
Well, it's not a public meeting.
Oh, okay, sorry. Is there an agenda? I just want to know about the expectation, because I know I'm happy to talk about the wards and such. I just want to know like in what format and what will I need to prepare?
The way I'm set it up, I mean, the agenda is, basically a little history of the whole charter process, and our charge as the members of the advisory board. And then we kind of just go into the survey. So if you look at the survey questions, when we get to that section, we'll have the setup as we do in the online survey, a little bit of intro. And we're going to ask those, 2 or 3 questions related to the ward topic. However you want to interject, engage on that. If you want to lead that entire part of the discussion, that's fine with me too.
I am a willing partner of letting
Okay.
you lead, and
Okay.
I will fill in for any context. And do you want me to bring the memo or anything, or just have that as I can refer to that as my notes. I don't know if you want that given to the people attending.
I don't know if we want to get that detailed. I think what would be helpful, I think Jeannie's thinking about bringing her her diorama.
Love that. Please do.
I think as we're doing the discussion, Kyle, it'd probably be helpful for you to give context of how, your subcommittee members and talking through this issue, probably tried to grapple with the questions that will come up.
Looking forward to
Did
it.
we look at this or that? And you can address that.
Great.
Any questions?
6 o'clock.
6:30,
Oh, 6.
6:30,
Glad I did.
6:30 to
Time for dinner.
8. So if you're able to eat ahead of time, great. I'll be over there by a little after 6, and I've already been to the library and did a practice run through. So it's a nice little setup for this type of meeting.
Do you need anything else as far as help or anything?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No. And then we'll look at scheduling other sessions. I think I want to wait and see how this goes on Wednesday. And also need to drive through completion of the online survey process. And I think we'll be discussing that here too a little bit. And then kind of decide how we approach subsequent public engagements sessions, whether it's similar to what we do here on Wednesday night or of a different nature.
Okay, Matthew, go ahead.
So Kyle, will you present both sides of the question on the wards, or just the current one outlined in the questionnaire?
I think my goal would to be not present a point of view and more to just, explain both the pros and the cons that were outlined in the memo. And kind of overview the options ranging from an at-large election, so the current system, to a partial sort of hybrid to a full wards, and let that discussion be led is kind of what I thought. But if anybody has any specific talking points that they would like me to emphasize or omit, please feel free to speak now or forever hold your peace.
Well, from my point, I'd really like to have the notion that this potentially has a deleterious effect on minority representation and equity. So.
I'll make that note.
Thank
during
you.
the Presentation. Thank you.
Hey, Matthew, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Hey, Matthew, and again, I wasn't part of your subcommittee discussions on this topic. Are there third-party research or something to point to this issue that you're raising?
Yes, my opinion is based on peer-reviewed, published literature.
Mhm.
So it's not, pie in the sky, or this is what I think might happen. This is what the literature has shown happens with this. I have a document that has that in that I'm happy to share with whomever would like to have a copy.
Yeah.
Can you share that with the full group?
Yeah,
I will do that.
I think you did a while back, did
Yeah.
you not, Matthew?
I may have,
Okay, but if you could send it again, that would be good.
more than happy to.
Okay,
So, and I'm looking at the memo again, there's a note, said the subcommittee has a few goals in mind when considering utilizing an at-large hybrid system could be beneficial. There's multiple bullet points, but one of them states increase representation and feeling of legitimacy people feel towards their elected officials. When we said representation, I don't know that that was implied that it would mean minority representation, but more geographic representation. If there's specific language that you would like me to edit or say during the meeting, please tell me.
Okay. I will write it out and send it to you, or send it to everybody.
Okay.
But yeah, because it may have maybe equality oriented, but it does not seem to be at all equity oriented with those changes. But I will, but let me send you some text about that.
okay, any other discussion? Okay. Dr. Peoples,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
want to talk about public engagement options?
Absolutely. Mr. Bader, would you mind pulling up that public engagement worksheet I gave you? Thank you. So as you do your work, we've been asked a couple of times about cost and what the city can assist with. Essentially, the city can assist with any of the public engagement plans. We just need to have those plans. So I thought I would outline just a few ideas, and please, this is not an exhaustive list. Again, if the committee or the whole membership comes up with other things, that's fine. So Webster Kirkwood Times ad, those typically run around $4.45 for quarter page ad. So just sharing that, and there's some deadline information there. I certainly won't read it to you, but if you have a specific week you would like it in, then we'll need it, a certain number of days ahead of time. We can also do a QR code within any type of print advertisement, which gets quite a big draw. Actually, people will follow the QR code. So that's just one option. And that of course goes to around 38,000 homes. Inside Webster Groves, there's no cost. It's already written into our budget cost, and it's a full page newsletter ad that goes into the WKT once a month. So again, if that's something this membership group is interested in, we have to back into that deadline. The city's weekly Friday page, there's no cost to that. Happy to put as much or little information in the Friday page as you would like. And it goes to about 1,100 emails. Social media, there's a lot of different social media options. Facebook seems to be where most of the community groups are, but we could certainly do Instagram, Twitter as well. Boosting of social media, the price there is $50 to $75, which is really no big deal. So if the group wants to do that as well, we certainly can. LinkedIn also gets a pretty good following as well. And then, of course, there's no deadline with social media. It just really has to do with what the group is trying to accomplish. Are there any specific questions about those or other ideas you would like? I'm happy to investigate other outreach opportunities, ideas.
Have you looked into postcards to
Yes.
residents?
Yes, and we can do postcards as well. We
Okay.
recently did that like with Balancing Act.
Right.
And so every household will get one. That has around a $450-ish cost as well, I believe. It's not cost prohibitive at all. We could certainly do that.
Do you think there's a good response to those postcards? It's hard to tell.
It is hard to tell.
Yeah.
I think it's certainly worth it. My question would be, and certainly not asking you to answer now, but what information do you want on that postcard?
Mhm. Okay. And the QR codes, like in the Webster Kirkwood Times, would we get a lot of potentially responses from people outside of Webster?
It is very likely their responses will
Okay.
be from outside of Webster. However, I don't know that that's really any different with the survey.
Right.
And in any survey that the city puts out, we get a fair number of responses from people that aren't residents, which is fine. They identify as not being residents, so you can certainly tease those out.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you know, can I follow up on that? So thank you, Marie, with this. And this kind of builds on the whole issue with the online survey, as I think I outlined at our last meeting. What I'm suggesting is that we look toward a go live date of May 18th. Which if we go with that date, now again, I'm just picking a date out of the blue and backtracking against that. Now we could push it back a little later too, but if we went with May 18th, which is, you know, obviously the earliest we can go, then there's a whole bunch of deadlines that will come into play in terms of when to have copy ready basically next week for the monthly newsletter. And then things of that nature. And we could do ads with the paper if we want. I'm going to suggest that we hold, if we go with May 18th as the survey start date, go live date, and if we meet the other deadlines for the weekly newsletter goes into Kirkwood Times, Webster Kirkwood Times, then holding that survey open for at least until Monday, June 12th, which would be about what, 3 weeks? At least in my, and I need to talk with Jenny further on this, but in my prior conversation with her, and then what you read just in terms of survey response rates, you get 80–90% of your survey responses in the first week or so. So holding it open beyond 3 weeks starts to become kind of, you know, diminishing returns, and you're not really going to get that much now. The only reason to hold it open longer is if we were to be doing some other amplification, whether it's the ad, we have place it in, or a postcard. Postcards particularly would be such a delayed process. If you're using a postcard to encourage participation in the survey, and again, it's whatever we want to do with a postcard approach. I hadn't really thought through whether to do a postcard approach at this point. Now, maybe we want to hold that for a tactic for later on.
Mhm. Yeah, like if we decide to do an open house at some point.
Mhm.
Well, from my personal experience, we tend to pay attention to like postcards that come from the city or the county or whatever, you know. It has a little
Usually
more,
asking for an inspection or something.
yeah, you never know exactly what it's gonna be, you know, and it's different than if someone's just, you know, selling firewood or something like that. I think it's safe to say most people would read it, would be my guess.
Sure.
I don't disagree that the postcard people would read it. I do worry we did just have one sent within the last month, that there might be a bit of survey fatigue in that respect. Which, you know, I know we're going to do a survey regardless, but I really like the idea of doing a boosted social media post. It's not that expensive. It's honestly, and this maybe is not great, but this is probably the best way that I followed Webster Groves is through social media. I didn't follow the Friday page until 10 seconds ago. So, and I also have never opened that red bag with the newspaper in it. So those are my thoughts.
I guess there's a way to sift through the demographics, and maybe, you know, there are still a lot of people that aren't on social media.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And is there a way to target that demographic and have a smaller universe?
Certainly, I think perhaps a little bit of all of these will
Yeah.
help draw the different demographics, but trying to think with some of the other outreach opportunities, we could even do yard signs, excuse me, not a ton in every yard, but place them around the parks. Right now, you may have seen some for some summer hiring, seasonal hiring, where they
Mm.
also link back to the QR code. So we could do something like that, place them strategically there. We could do flyers, have them go certain places. There's all kinds of options.
Okay. Maybe even the sign out front. Yeah. Okay, well, it's something we should maybe talk about in the next week, maybe by email, we can hammer out something and get it to you,
So,
to people.
do we need to design the copy and the, like, whatever the ad is, or?
We're happy to do that. I'll put Jenny Starkey on the spot. All we really need is your text, and I'm happy to help with any of the text language, hopefully much same way the survey is done, but we certainly don't want to create it for you.
So may I ask, as we're looking at whether a postcard or even some physical sort of thing, what are we wanting to drive people to do
The survey, I think, is what we want.
to the survey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I love the idea of the postcard. I don't like the having had one sent so recently. I think we should save the postcard for an invitation to an open house. Like, down the line when we have something to present. But I think the survey is great. I think we do social media.
Yeah.
The Friday page, the red newspaper bag thing. I think it'd be great.
Okay.
And then we don't have to spend as much money all at once.
Okay, well, let's work on that in the next week and
Yep.
get something to Dr. Peoples. Okay,
So members okay with us moving ahead with a target date of going live with the survey on May 18th and holding the certain, and again, I got to give people a deadline. Or like at least, I don't, I'd have to talk with Jenny if she always gives a deadline to these surveys or not. Because I was thinking June 12th, at one point I had Thursday, June 15th, somewhere that week to cut it off. But I just want to make sure that if we do some other tactical aspects that we're not, the survey will be closed by the time those get out. Just want to make sure that those happen beforehand. So we can do that with the ad. That can happen within basically 7 to 10 days easily.
Mr. Dugan, I was just looking at the calendar. So that is quite an ambitious timeline, May 18th, depending on the type of advertisements, educational outreach are done. Can certainly help. So maybe I'm not tracking. So for the 18th, what type of, was that the social media outreach?
The survey goes live and then we'd be doing the Friday page
On the
on
19th?
19th,
Mhm.
which means having that content ready early next week, mid
That's
next
the
week,
soonest.
yes. And again, that would be driving, making people aware of a survey being done and your chance to participate in it. So on May 19th. And then the Kirkwood, if we did a ad in the Webster Kirkwood Times, we could look at Thursday, May 25th. Oh, wait, that's when your Webster Groves newsletter appears, right? I believe. I think I wrote that.
Probably
And then we look at June 1st as a ad placement to decide shooting for a June 8th at the latest. Well, this is what I was thinking. June 8th would be, it could do an ad and it's basically your last chance to participate in the survey before it closes on the 12th or the 15th.
Does it maybe make more sense just to have it launch on the 25th and
could,
do
yep.
one ad rather? Because I don't feel like people will be paying close enough attention to understand, oh, I saw one ad that it's open and one ad that it's closed. I think we can probably just do the
Mhm.
inside Webster Groves and then maybe a separate ad the following week. Because I think there should be an ad like the day it launches, because you're probably not going to get much. If we launched on the 18th and the only way people would know about it was on the 19th from the Friday page. I worry that that would not be big, especially if you, like Jenny said, most people fill it out in the very beginning.
Right.
So. And word of mouth is helpful.
Timing wise, I'm not sure we can have the ad in the paper ready at the same time. If we launch on the survey on May 18th to get to the Friday, May 19th
Okay.
newsletter, it could be the next week after.
How often does the Kirkwood Webster Times go?
It is once a week. Steve, would you scroll back up to the WKT piece, please?
Thank you.
So if you wanted it launched on the 18th, we would need it by the 12th for it to be able to be in the WKT, which is possible.
And if it was the 25th, the 19th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and just wondering, maybe from the feedback we might get on Wednesday.
And that's, I want to take that in consideration. So I don't want to push things too quickly in terms of the material ads or whatever that need to have some lead time to them.
Right,
And I don't think it hurts us to have the survey go live and soft launch and then start publicity
Yeah,
uh,
well,
a few days later after that.
and also just occurred to me that the 25th is going to be Memorial Day.
And Memorial
weekend.
Day, yeah, you got that
Mhm.
too.
No one will look at it. When does school end?
This week. I mean,
Oh,
schools
okay.
are
yeah.
ending right now.
I guess we're doing the 18th.
I was just curious, Joe, for the listing sessions. What type of people are going to be there? You're not naming, is there a list?
There's, yeah, so we have a list. We pulled together from our public engagement committee got together and
Mhm.
names were thrown together, compiled out of that. We tried to, look at diversity of ages and occupations and perspectives. This is not perfect.
Geographic as well.
And geographic as well. And I think we would want to, if we decide, after going through this session here next Wednesday, if we need further listening sessions, we will hold those.
But are these like representatives of organizations or just individuals or both?
A little bit of both. There's some organizational participants and some are people who have participated in prior city commissions
Okay.
and boards.
Okay,
Some of them have participated in some of the other city public engagement activities in the past.
okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I did just want to note that at our last city council meeting, a couple of city council members asked about the scheduling of these kinds of events, as if some members of our public are expecting the opportunity to come and be able to comment in person. So as you think about what you want to do in the long run, seems to be some expectation among some people that they will be given the opportunity to come to a town hall or a session like this, rather than just be limited to those who are invited.
right. And that's part of the plan.
I knew it was, but I just wanted to make sure you all knew that members of the council are being asked about this. So as soon as we know when, council members can also help amplify both the survey, but especially those in-person meetings.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Considering that we don't have much participation at our meetings,
Right.
that people are asking about it. That's great.
They do like us.
Huh?
They do like us.
Yeah.
Oh, I do think, members of the public and folks who are active in the city civic affairs, some will want to have awareness of our schedule of these sort of events and maybe even an invitation to participate. So we need to be looking at that. And this first session is to kind of give us a sense of how to start going about that process. Because I think it will probably necessitate holding an additional meeting or two of this nature and maybe larger type session.
Mhm.
And Joe, just so you know, that's exactly what I told the council, was that you all were working your way through this and that things would be forthcoming in terms of events and dates and things like that.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I would just add that, I know that what is your committee called? Public engagement.
Mhm.
I'm more than happy to help attend or help plan if you need assistance. I don't want you to feel like you have to do everything. So
Thank you.
Great.
Kyle.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on this issue? No.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention was public engagement is critical, but at the same time, my experience has been people who come out tend to be more people who've got complaints, and we need to understand that. I mean, there was when I was in graduate school in political science, the professors used to say, and we didn't like this, that low turnout meant that people were satisfied with how things were. And I think it's kind of proven out in like the presidential elections that they've been so stressful that it's been high voter turnout. So, we need to take that into account. I'm sure we will.
Um,
So in terms, Madam Chair, just
Yeah.
on this
Yeah.
planning here. I and other members of the Public Engagement Committee, Subcommittee will get back together and we'll work through the scheduling of the survey launch and amplification process, and we'll circulate a proposed updated timeline.
okay.
But I think it'll have to wait until after we do the Wednesday session, kind of see what kind of changes and things that come out of that if that impacts how quickly we move ahead with finalizing the survey. Even the members themselves here of our board here have given me some feedback here over the last couple of 3 days that I'm working through too.
Okay, thank you. Discussion on recommended charter revisions, and there were a couple questions I asked of Neil, but he's not here.
Madam Chair, are there any questions I need to get from Neil or
The-
happy to prompt and poke?
Yeah, the questions I had, Dr. Peoples, were about 2.10 and the creation of new departments or offices.
Okay.
And just considering the language that we're looking at and deleting the entire Article 4, I didn't know if 2.10 was duplicative or even needed to exist anymore. And the second part of that was for the same reason, was Article 3, 3.3 parentheses 5. And that's the eliminate the city manager to serve as a director of one department or director of two departments with council approval. And we said that would be under council consideration, but it may be possible to delete that too. And then there were in the initiative referendum and recall in 14.1 to 14.3. We may want to change that language from votes cast to ballots cast, because the ballots cast is what we're relying on for percentage numbers. and the charter says votes cast. And for example, you may have 6,000 ballots cast, but if you have a list of council members up for election, you may end up with 16,000 votes cast. So I think to make that match our practice, and I can email this to you if that's helpful.
I think I have it.
Okay.
Okay, I will chase you down some answers.
Okay.
On that one, weren't we going to change it to percentage of registered voters? Was that the feeling?
Yeah, if we don't go that route,
Oh, if we don't go that route, yeah.
yeah. It's just something that,
Right. So we're looking at kind of two questions here. One is, do we want to propose to move to determining the signature threshold on the basis of number of registered voters? So we got to decide that question and what percentages to utilize. And I circulated, Dr. People circulated to members here, an updated scenario document that's here, it should be in your packet, that has these options here. Because what I didn't realize, at least, the city and when these are decided, are looking at biennial elections only. So it's when the city council members are being voted on. So that's the registration and votes cast or ballots cast data points that we're looking at. But I also wanted to give everyone, a sense of how those registered voter numbers change with each election. So you kind of see the trend lines, but really April 2022 data points are this, what we need to be focused on, and whether we want to, stick with the votes cast or the current approach, which is called votes cast, but it's actually ballots cast. And that's what the chair is asking about separately, or whether if we're going to go with a registered voter scenario of some percentage. And I've thrown up 5% and the 10% thresholds just to show you how the numbers change because you are dealing with a larger number there. But if we decide not to go with registered voters, we should clarify this issue of votes cast, ballots cast, just so it's clear.
Well, I personally don't know of a good reason not to use registered voter, because I think it's much simpler, actually, and it's easier for the public, because there's like this vote cast in this municipal election. I mean, why was that the case? Who knows?
I suspect, and again, we never actually discussed this in our prior meetings about this, but I suspect that votes cast or ballots cast was chosen because somebody decided, well, those are the people who are showing up to vote. The registered voter, people get registered to vote, but they never vote. But so why make the petition group have to come to that larger number? I mean, that's going to be the argument we will hear.
Well, I think the argument is going to be that we're making it too hard to do these.
Right,
things. Registered voters, we could make it recommend whatever percentage we think is appropriate, and it could come out much the same way.
Right.
But I think I like registered voters because it's unquestionable what the number is,
Right. And when, as you see with the table there, the numbers stay fairly stable. They don't change a whole lot. Whereas the votes cast, as the chair was pointing out, it depends on the election and what's on the ballot. And how much turnout is. And we did have in April 2022, a much higher turnout than we usually do. So now actually for anybody who would be doing a petition going forward, they actually have a little higher bar just by virtue of what happened in turnout. So registered voter basis would help standardize that over time.
Well, and I don't know the answer to this, but when, let's say a candidate runs for city council right now and they have to circulate a petition, what is the threshold? Is it based on registered voters or?
it's 100 signatures.
Just 100 signatures, okay. It seems to me that like on things like statewide referendums and various things, it's based on registered voters.
It's based on, for congressional districts, and it's 8% of in each congressional district based on the last gubernatorial election. But the state is working very hard to make that much, much harder.
But if
So,
at that 8%, is it 8% of?
I think it's 8%. Don't quote me on it,
8%
Paul.
Of the registered voters, the people who turned out in the last election?
The
Turnout.
recall for state elected officials, 25% of the total number of registered voters and
Yeah,
whatever.
there you go.
Yeah, for recall.
Mhm. I mean, I could look up others. That's just what I Googled the first time. Am I reading?
But
this?
for like a petition,
So recall of elected officials,
yeah. But
petition signed by voters for their successor, equal to at least 25% of the total registered voters.
okay, but for to put something on the ballot, like a constitutional amendment.
1 moment. We'll do some real-time research. You can continue talking. It might take me a second.
Okay.
Just to occupy airtime here. So Paul, if you recall in the survey on this section here, what we do ask respondents is should register, the petition signatures, should it be higher than the current, somewhat higher, a little bit higher, significantly higher, or keep it
Right.
at the same. So that's how we try to approach it in terms of the survey approach.
Right. I think that's good. I think if you had a specific number, it's hard for people to focus in on.
Yeah.
All right, so for an initiative petition, which is again, not what you asked, but another example,
Close enough.
it is 5% of legal voters in any 6 of the 8 congressional districts. Any proposals for constitutional change must be signed by 8% of legal voters. So I don't know what the difference would be between legal voters and registered voters. I imagine they're the same,
Yeah.
but it looks like, to follow the example, it's a registered voters situation. And I will continue reading the document until I learn more.
I think there is a debate in Jefferson City about
Right.
if all registered voters are legal to vote. So that's a different issue.
But either way, not based on votes cast
Yes.
or ballots cast.
Yeah. Okay, jump in when you find something, Kyle.
I'm speed reading 44 pages.
So while we're waiting, the next to consider agenda items for the next meeting, I've found some links to examples of reports for what we can use to tailor our report to council on some which I emailed to Dr. Peoples, and we'll send those out and just to start thinking about how we want to approach our report to council.
Madam Chair, do you want me to print or have any of those ready for the next meeting or? happy to.
Maybe we could send out the
Sure.
links to that. Some of them are quite lengthy. And then future meeting dates, we have May 23rd, June 12th, and June 27th. Do we want to go beyond that now or wait till we have more people here?
I think it's probably best to wait until
Yeah,
we get more.
I think we're pretty far out now already.
I don't have more. The document that I'm reading, just for everyone's awareness, the Secretary of State puts out a Missouri initiative petition process. I haven't found yet, not that it doesn't exist, but in my searching, I haven't found yet for the recall or what am I missing? Referendum. But I can share this with the group if you'd like, and everyone
Okay.
else can read it. Okay.
Sure. Okay, anything else for the good of the group?
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
going back to the online survey process, we want to make sure, several board members have given me inputs. We're trying to address those to the extent that we can. There's some choices that have to be made in how we approach this. I did circulate, I think, with the city manager's email that sent out the board agenda and all that. There were several attachments. And these were the documents that we are proposing to include as resource documents as part of the survey. So as a person who's going through the survey, they can link out. Now, those documents will be PDFs that will be posted to the city's document archive center. And then they can also be surfaced on our CRAB webpage too. And we've been making a few edits to the documents, including the petition signature threshold scenario document you see up here and a couple other small edits here and there on some of the other documents as we're proofing things. Is there any objection to moving ahead with inclusion of those documents as part of the survey process as a resource link for folks? I mean, again, when you go through the survey, these PDFs will only show up if you click on the link and you want to see the other information. Is there any comments or questions?
Again, and I'm not as familiar with how SurveyMonkey works, but will they show up as like, because if you just put it in as a photo, for example, would it just show up like whenever you click on a picture and it zooms and makes it bigger, or is it literally going to take you to a separate link?
It'll have to take, at least the current approach that I'm looking at is take you to a separate link.
Is there a way to
And
just
then
make
you
it a
back
photo
out.
and make it bigger, like zooming in on a picture? Or like incorporating it into the survey so they don't
I'll
have to-
talk with Jenny of the city staff. I don't think so on that with SurveyMonkey, or at least it's very limited. I mean, what you see on the current survey is we put in the logo of the city, and that's, there's only certain places where you can put in visuals like that. We can play around with that and see. The problem we'll potentially have is how does that translate to different devices? Smartphones versus laptops, or whatever people are accessing through, and that could cause an issue. Again, I got a lot of testing to do over the next few days to verify that things are working properly. I've been doing it so far and been very pleased with how it's working out because we've kept it pretty simple. Again, if we put images into it, we'll test it and see what it looks like.
Well, I had some questions now that I've thought about it more, and after you kind of got me going a little bit on the question of the salary of the council members and the mayor. I think it's hard to put in specific amounts that, I don't think people can relate to that. I think it, and somebody else wrote a comment that it might be good to say that like the salary should be the median of what comparable communities are getting, something like that, rather than so much a month, because I can't relate to that. And the other thing is, on the subject of the threshold for initiative recall referendum, I kind of think it would be good to put in there that our present system is the most liberal of those policies of any surrounding community.
You mean by lowest bar?
Lowest threshold,
I don't know if that's true or not.
I think it is.
I don't know that we researched that.
Yeah.
It may be true, but I don't know I don't know that it was ever presented to everyone.
Because I think people are gonna, by reflex, are gonna say to keep it as the threshold as low as possible.
Again, I pulled together, I don't have it with me handy, but I did pull together a sampling of thresholds from some other, and that's part of the documentation that would be up there. I think there's one or two other municipalities in St. Louis County that are at the same or lower.
But I think.
But most of them
are
are-
registered
Yes, that's true.
voters. Those are registered
That,
voters.
that could be. Yeah. Going back,
I think U City is like 5% of registered voters.
that right?
Something like that.
yeah. And going back to the salary compensation question, the compensation question issue is not salary, but our subcommittee, when we worked through this issue, we spent a little bit of time kind of discussing how to present that. At a juncture, and I will speak only as myself as a member of that subcommittee, I think what I was trying to help our group achieve and bring to the full board here was what we thought would be a good first step and a reasonable approach here. And that's where we looked at using Creve Coeur as a comparative municipality and looking at their threshold levels. And I think the other members of the subcommittee at that time were comfortable with that. I think after we concluded that, and I think members kind of looked and they realized, that Creve Coeur hasn't updated their salary numbers apparently since 2009. That was a concern. I think looking at some of the other municipalities, St. Louis County have higher levels, and there's concern of whether the levels there being suggested by the Creve Coeur number or something similar to that would be enough to encourage people beyond, retired, individuals or persons from more wealthy means who have, time and energy to devote to, city government engagement. So I think there were some members, and I think of the board at large that are looking at possibly, is there a higher, a larger number that we need to be looking at?
Could I just,
Yeah.
I'm looking at the question again, and again, you guys have done a fantastic job at this. I'm not trying to nitpick, but maybe we just add an additional radio button that says, what number do you want? Like if like none of these options, instead I want to give $1,000 a day to them. I don't know, that's ridiculous, but like, at least it would give us a range, or just adding another option if that could, elicit some sort of, either if it's not technically possible or it would elicit just garbage answers, just something that says above your highest one. Cause you have one that says oppose any increase, but you don't have one that says, I think it should be more than what's listed.
Okay. Would that help address?
Yeah,
It's a-
but I don't think people should be voting on the exact salary.
They're not voting, they're just giving their opinion.
Well, and to my knowledge, we had this conversation last time and we all had the opposite opinion. Like I feel like we've changed, the original question was what Paul, you were suggesting, and now they've changed it and now we're telling them to change it again.
Yeah. Yes, and I think that's true. We did put out a number before. And there was some concern about that. And so there was more interest in putting out options. And we can, as Kyle's suggesting, we could add some other options there to give people flexibility.
Did we put down there that it hasn't been increased since what, 1960?
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
That's good. I thought, but I said it in the email, you guys did a very outstanding job.
And the other thing I'd point out, at least for the record, if we put the current caps for city council members and the mayor compensation for the year, this was $600 and $750 in terms of that compensation level. And you put that into the Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Price Index thing, the resulting numbers come relatively close to what the Creve core levels are. I mean, there's a little variance there, but it's that sort of proportions.
So the county is going through a citizens commission for their salary increase.
I should know that answer better, but I
Oh,
don't,
they
I
are.
don't, I don't want to stake my reputation on being wrong. So.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. Anything else? Nicole, Matthew?
I don't have anything else. I thought you guys did a great job putting all that together. A lot of detail in a really easily readable format.
Thank you. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? No, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
It was Joe that made the, or second, right?